Namaskar.
Welcome, viewers, and welcome, Mr. Tiwari. We have been very consciously aware that today, when many people in India are celebrating birthday, we are discussing same gentleman here, and the kind of information which today social media shares makes us get up and realize that many things were either half truth or half lies, or they were pure branded PR material.
Right.
And gentleman who has been projected as a kind of man which most people would like to think him to be is actually a different person. For the benefit of viewers, let me share that Mr. Ramakant Tiwari is eminently qualified to speak on such subject. Not only on this subject, you are welcome, Mr. Ramakant Tiwari, but it is my privilege and pleasure to introduce you to our viewers. Mr. Tiwari has been a professional manager and he served in private sector in disciplines of industrial marketing and corporate affairs. He started writing since 2007. First title, Srimad Bhagavad Gita, as Sarvdham Yoga Upanishad was published in 2015 by Vikas Publication House and is available on Flipkart and Amazon. Other titles, Mysticism of Sankhya Darshana, Narada Bhakti Sutra, and Exposition Yoga Darshan and Maharshi Patanjali are awaiting for publication. Maybe publishers will pick up these titles soon and will be benefited by the kind of knowledge and wisdom he would share through the books. Currently, he is writing Universal Civil Code of Manusmriti. 340 articles on various issues of import are already available on the website, which we have shared in the description box of this YouTube live discussion. He has been very candid, and it may appear to many people that he has been very ruthless, but ruthless with accuracy about the legendary Jumla. And we will go on various points of today's discussion. But to start with, Mr. Ramakant Tiwari, I would like you to share with all of us why you call him last Mughal.
Yeah. I call him last Mughal because there are many reasons to confirm that. For example, he introduced Hindu Code Bill instead of Uniform Civil Code. His opposition to renovation of Somnath Mandir in Gujarat. He also vehemently opposed inauguration of the temple by President Dr. Rajendra Prasad. And he appointed one Maulana as first education minister of the country. Maulana, he was an Arab actually. This is what has come to the surface now. So, in fact, today we cannot imagine Abdullah Bukhari of Jama Masjid as education minister of the country. But he did it and he got away with it. And secondly, it is widely talked about and believed that he was a beef eater also. I'm not, I mean, I don't have any evidence to that effect, but I mean, it is being talked about. And Congress party has not strongly denied, contradicted, or opposed it. So these are, and I find that almost all his decisions, actions, they were either pro-Muslim or anti-Hindu. So, I mean, there is every reason for me to call him the last Mughal of the country.
Uh, when you call him last Mughal, of course, many things come to mind. And true to Mughal tradition, in which power was usurped,
Yeah.
many people would not know probably that it was not Nehru who was the chosen candidate for prime ministership. So how this Mughal, last Mughal, as you say,
Hmm.
took over that lead, and that position, which was rightfully of Mr. Patel,
Yeah.
was managed by him for
Yeah.
himself.
Right. Right. You see, we all are aware that when views were collected from Pradesh Congress committees, I think the number, as the number goes on, out of 15 votes, 14 went in favor of Sardar Patel, and there was only one vote in favor of Nehru. And when this was conveyed to Gandhi, he was quite very unhappy, and he started pressurizing, persuading Sardar Patel to withdraw his name. Now, it's Gandhi's reasons were that Muslims are not very friendly, not very well disposed towards Sardar Patel. That was one reason he gave. And second reason Gandhi floated was that Sardar Patel was not probably eminently qualified to handle foreign policy and overseas countries and all that. My view is that if these two were really genuine reasons, then Gandhi should have gone for, he should have supported, proposed Dr. Ambedkar's name instead of Nehru. Because then Dr. Ambedkar, very well, I mean, he was eminently qualified on all these two criteria. I do have an article in my mind why Gandhi did not propose and support Dr. Ambedkar instead of Jawaharlal Nehru if he was so much allergic to Sardar Patel. I mean, we'll have to wait for some time. It may come in future after, this thing. So certainly, I mean, it looks like when we go through history, it's very obvious that probably Gandhi had an anti-Sardar Patel agenda in his mind, and he was predetermined in favor of Nehru, and that was the same reason why he pressurized, bullied Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose to resign from Congress presidentship. So that's the reason. I mean, by appointing Nehru was his favorite child, and Gandhi had it way.
People would wonder that it was Mr. Patel who was to first stand his ground, and then maybe he would have gathered the support.
Hmm.
Ultimately, he was already enjoying the majority support.
Hmm.
We have the benefit of discussing the events in past in
Yeah.
today's
Right.
context.
Hmm.
So, in today's context, it appears that Sardar Patel should have stood his ground.
Exactly.
That would have been, much better. But then
Right.
we still do not know what were
Hmm.
the compelling reasons for Sardar Patel not to stand his ground and stand his position.
Right.
He has been very critical of Nehru's policies.
Hmm.
Nehru's policies were, during his own time, very strongly criticized by the likes of Shri Mahavir Tyagi.
Hmm. Right.
Especially his foreign policies were considered to be very, very foolish and absurd, even
Absolutely.
during his time.
Right. Right.
So let's hear from you how you see his foreign policy and Panchsheel Siddhant.
You see, I would like to make a drastic statement. He was not having any foreign policy at all. In fact, he was following pro Jawaharlal Nehru foreign policy. How can you be non aligned in a country, in a world of around 190 countries or so, and with so many complex international forces exerting themselves? So I feel by floating this bogus doctrine of non alignment, Nehru was bent upon pushing his pro communist agenda upon the country. And by hoodwinking the nation through non alignment, he aligned himself with the communist bloc. You see, when in 1962, a communist country invaded us, captured our territory, and not a single non aligned country came to our support. They didn't even criticize China. On the contrary, so-called imperialist forces like USA and all that, they were too eager to help us because President Kennedy did not want this country to fall into communist trap. And that was a golden opportunity for Nehru to encash it. You imagine if at that time Prime Minister Modi had been there, he would have derived full advantage of it. He would have taken funds to develop nuclear arms, nuclear armament, and he would have hit back upon China very hard. Just like Modi has done recently in that climate conference, he said that unless we are enrolled as members of NSG, Nuclear Supplier Group, it will not be possible for us to phase out coal based thermal plants so soon. So that way, it was a very brilliant strategy devised by him to derive advantage in favor of our country. Nehru could have done that, but he didn't do because he had a different agenda altogether. And non-alignment was a complete disaster. You see, after experience of 1962, when Pakistan witnessed not a single non-aligned country supported or came to rescue of our country, Muhammad Ayub Khan, he was smart enough to invade in 1965 because he knew there will be no other country who will come to support us. That precedent was already there. So I feel Link's roots of 1965 invasion are there in 1962 debacle. So in a way, I hold Nehru responsible for our 1964 war also. Overall, non-alignment had been absolutely of no use for us. It was a complete Jumla in a way, I would say.
In fact, when you say it was complete Jumla, I
Uh-huh.
did many years back MA in political science,
Uh-huh.
and non-alignment movement
Mhm.
was one of the questions in
Mhm.
second year, final year. And I remember what I gathered, and today probably you also would like to comment further.
Mhm.
Observation was that absolute black or absolute white, and similarly non-alignment movement is matter to be proven only in laboratory. In real world,
Absolutely.
it
Yes.
never
Yes. Yes.
occurs.
Yes.
So
Yes.
how can people
Exactly.
remain non-aligned
Uh,
in world politics?
oh, it's
How is it
impossible.
possible? Is it
It
not full
is
of paradoxes?
absolutely. It is absolutely impossible. You see, the point is, we got rewards of non-alignment right in the life of Nehru itself. You talked about Panchashil Agreement. Panchashil Agreement is heavily tilted in favor of China. And quite, you'll be surprised to know that Nehru's bureaucracy was entirely against the Panchsheel agreement, but he overruled all of them and he signed the agreement. And when, even a slightest deviation from communist ideology or socialist ideology, even by a micron, I have written that in my article also. Immediately, we used to become butt of jokes by communist countries. And he, see, another aspect is that he did align the country with Soviet bloc. And what was Soviet Union doing to us at that time? Our entire government was riddled, perforated with Soviet moles. And now we know that Russia was responsible for murder of Lal Bahadur Shastri also. So that is why I say it was a complete jumla and a complete disaster. It was, one of the worst policy decisions in the history of this country.
So his foreign policy was disastrous,
Absolutely.
and his defense policy was pathetic.
Pathetic. I
You
would
have
like to
already mentioned about
right.
62, 65,
Uh, I
and
would like to remind you. I would like to remind you that he was totally against army. He used to say, "What do we have to do with army? Police is enough. Police will take care of everything." We believe in ahimsa. We are not going to invade anybody. So why should anybody invade us? And when he was warned by intelligence bureau that China is planning to invade us, he said, "No, I can't believe it. It's not possible. It must be some sort of misadventure by them." And consequences are there for all of us to see.
Today's generation, especially students of political science, would find it
Hmm.
very amusing to note that here
Hmm.
is a prime minister,
Hmm.
first prime minister of independent country,
Hmm.
for which, for that independence, lot of sacrifices,
Yeah.
lives were lost, lot
Hmm.
loot and plunder, and
Uh,
anarchy, rape
hmm.
and murder, everything
Hmm.
happened. Then
Hmm.
we got the independence, and the prime minister, worthy of that post, says that I do not need army, police will
Exactly.
defend the country.
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
So,
It was a height of, say, mental bankruptcy. No, he was not mentally bankrupt. He had an agenda. The Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, I hold him one of the worst enemies of the nation. You called him, and many people call him first Prime Minister. I would say no, he was second Prime Minister. First Prime Minister was Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, whose government was recognized by 11 countries, including Russia. So it's a historic blunder that we must correct it as early as possible. Nehru was second prime minister and not the first one. And after almost 30 to 40 lakh people were killed during partition, after seeing all that, if a prime minister says we don't need army, then I would say that such a person should be thrown out immediately without any delay, lock, stock, and barrel. Now, another point you raised that he was a freedom fighter. Had he been really a freedom fighter, he would have met the fate of Bhagat Singh, Chandrasekhar Azad, Ram Prasad Bismil, and Ashfaqullah Khan. I mean, you see, British regime was so brutal, so cruel. Do you think they would have spared him had he been a freedom fighter? Do you think they might have spared Gandhi had he been really a freedom fighter? They used to be imprisoned in guest houses with all the facilities. And Maulana Azad used to demand tea in bone china cutlery. And they used to be provided. They used to play badminton and tennis in jail. What sort of imprisonment was that? It's a complete hoax that they were freedom fighters. And in fact, those who were really freedom fighters, they quit Congress, like Netaji Subhash and Bose. They were the genuine even Dr. Hedgewar, founder of RSS, he was a genuine freedom fighter. And when he saw through their games, he quit Congress. So, question is that you see the point is look at history of Congress. It was founded by a Britisher after I think in the year 1885 or so. And the sole purpose of Congress was to hoodwink freedom movement. And that is how Gandhi and Nehru and all these people were created and floated around. So, in fact, I have written an article also, Real Janpatri of Congress is here, like that. And I would say it is worth reading, and all these facts I have highlighted in that. So, I am not prepared to accept that he was a freedom fighter. Had he been a freedom fighter, then he would not have been able to become first or second prime minister of the country.
in fact, for the benefit of viewers,
Uh-huh.
we in Patriots Forum had discussion last month
Uh-huh.
only with Mr.
Uh-huh.
Amit Bahaduri, and before that we had discussion with Jan G.D. Bakshi.
Uh-huh.
And subject with Jan G.D. Bakshi was contribution of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose
Uh-huh.
for our freedom fighter, which was the
Right.
real reason for Britishers leaving India so soon and so
Right.
fast.
Right.
With Amit Bhadri, I had discussion whether
Mm.
we actually got the independence or it was transfer of power.
Mm-hmm.
Both the subjects are eminently worthy of discussion because today's context and today's ways of finding the truth, the real truth,
Mm.
is much easier than
Much
what it
easier,
was
right?
in 1947. Today,
Absolutely.
we are in that position that we can actually see that transfer of power Act 1947 passed by
Hmm.
British Parliament is still existing.
Hmm.
And let's see, how Britishers react and how India react. Time is
Right.
coming soon
Right.
for that timeline. But then, so far with you in discussion, Mr. Tiwari, we have discussed how disastrous his foreign policy was
Hmm.
and how laughable and absurd his defense
No,
policy was.
policy, her defense policy.
So we have
At this
discussed
point,
his foreign
uh,
policy, we have discussed his defense policy. Now
uh,
coming home, we are
excuse me for
discussing
interruption.
home policy. The same uh, worthy prime minister who knew
Huh,
that he has had discussion with Muslim League, which was the real and actual only reason for India's partition.
right,
Muslim League caused the partition, if at all there was any reason for
right.
division of India.
Absolutely.
In Muslim League, Nehru had agreement in West
Hmm.
Bengal.
Hmm. Yeah,
Congress was
exactly.
their partner.
Right,
So
right.
how again this can be accepted in politics? Politics is subject of impossibilities turned into
Yeah,
possibilities.
possibilities.
How this is absolutely impossible thing which he made appear maybe a magical trick. How do you react to his
See,
policy?
I would like to say it in this way. If such an absurd policy of non-alignment could be accepted by him and practiced by him at the expense of the nation, and if he could afford to say that we don't need army at all, forget about arms and armamentarium, then alignment with Muslim League was also very much possible. After all, his agenda was to stick to power, enjoy all perks of power in this country without doing anything, without being accountable for that. So he would have aligned with anybody. You see, at the expense of the nation, he aligned the nation through non-alignment with Soviet blocs, and they planted so many moles in our country. So I seriously suspect his commitment to the nation. Let me tell you very honestly. I'm not prepared to accept him either as a freedom fighter, either as a nationalist, either as a patriot. If you allow me, he was a plain curse on this nation. And recently, just a few days back, I think yesterday or day before yesterday, that actress Kangana Ranaut has said that this Azadi was a beak. Real Azadi came in 2014. She is deadly accurate. She is absolutely on dot because the mental revolution has started in 2014 only. And that is a real independence movement. Now our minds are getting free. Till 2014, our minds of masses were shackled to Nehru Gandhi Vadra dynasty. Gandhi and Gandhi and Gandhi only and nobody else. So, in fact, this freedom movement, which has started in 2014 after Narendra Modi took over as Prime Minister, this is the real independence movement. It's going on, and it's going on very well.
Kangna
So,
Ranawat was probably politically not correct, but
no,
brutally true. She
absolutely,
had
absolutely.
spoken
Huh.
without mincing words. So politically,
Without missing
she may
one.
not be correct, but then she is not incorrect also.
She's not incorrect,
And
and she is produced. Yeah,
yes,
she.
you and me are not in the politics, and we
Huh.
need not be politically correct for that reason. So
Uh-huh.
when you say that he was he was not freedom fighter,
Huh.
same thing can be said that he was a fake person.
Yeah, exactly,
And
exactly.
being fake is part of Congress DNA.
Absolutely.
And early signs were already exhibited. And again,
Hmm.
maybe Once again, I highlight that we are not trying to be politically correct.
Right.
What Akhilesh Yadav has said
Hmm.
about barristers,
Yeah.
couple of barristers joined together and
Hmm.
so magnanimously divided the country as per their preferences and part of I would say uh, the legacy as if they
Hmm.
own. So
Hmm.
four barristers sat together
Hmm.
and divided the country.
Yeah.
But
Right.
that time, one person was very brutally honest and candid in
Hmm.
observation. And you have
Yeah.
mentioned in one of the article about Mr. B.R. Ambedkar,
B.R. Ambedkar. Right.
and he has commented the keynote
Hmm.
of our foreign policy is to solve the problems of other countries
Yeah.
and not
Absolutely.
to solve the problem of our own
Our
country.
country. Hmm.
That was the foreign policy based on Panchsheel and all that.
Absolutely. That was a
Uh,
statement he delivered in Parliament.
yeah.
Uh,
So it remained kind of policy for good many years till
yeah.
harm
Exactly.
was done to that extent that it took 70 years for
Till
courts and
2014. Till 2014. In fact, Salman Khurshid, as foreign minister, he climaxed it. He made the best out of this policy of anti-Bharat and pro-West and all that, pro-China, pro-West. He used to say that Beijing is a beautiful city. I would like to settle down there. So I mean, sort of foreign policy that Nehru founded, it continued by all Congress governments and their foreign ministers till, I mean, the turnaround was there in 2014. One point you just a few minutes ago you said about Netaji's contribution to freedom movement. In fact, his contribution was the one of the largest contribution to freedom movement, I would say. In one of my articles, I have written there are three most important pillars of our freedom movement. Most important, I mean, they provided turnaround. I mean, they gave a new direction to our freedom movement. First was Mangal Pandey, who he lit the spark, and it turned out to be so fierce that Britishers ran away from this country, and this country was free from British regime for some 2 or 3 months or so. Second, in my view, was Lokmanya Tilak, who added economic dimension. I mean, through by burning Videshi Kapdon ki Holi and economic boycotts, Swadeshi Jagran and all that, he added a very different economic financial dimension to this freedom movement. And third, most important pillar was, of course, decisive one, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. So all other freedom fighters, I mean, I'm not in any way trying to belittle their contribution. That was every freedom fighter had enormously contributed. But these three figures were the tallest, in my view, out of all.
Ramakant Tiwari ji, when people today believe that many freedom fighters were fighting for the freedom of the country,
Hmm.
they were few scammers and fraud people,
Hmm.
fake independent movement leaders and freedom fighters
Too many of
who were
them.
bargaining for dominion status.
Exactly, exactly. Even in
So they
fact,
were not fighting for the freedom, they were
uh,
bargaining for the dominion status of
dominion.
India.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely.
Is it true to believe that actually they were doing it,
Yes, of
especially
course.
Nehru and Gandhi?
Absolutely. They were doing it. That is why we got it. That is why we got it. You see, the point is, Gandhi started that Bharat Chodo Andolan. Bharat Chodo Andolan was basically to polish his own image because he was losing his relevance altogether. And eventually it flopped also. After that, they kicked out Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose from the main scene. And then they started negotiating. In fact, the Dominion status, in my view, was proposed by Mountbatten. It was his idea. It was planted in Nehru's mind, Gandhi's mind, Jinnah's mind, and ultimately, I mean, it all materialized. And Mountbatten knew very well. In fact, in case of Sardar Patel, I would say that all these fellows they had ganged up against him. They had ganged up against Sardar Patel, and in fact, in one of my articles, I have highlighted, I have explained why Sardar Patel agreed to withdraw. Otherwise, it would have been all round destruction, and independence would have been postponed further. So, dominion status, it was a fact. I mean, it is a factual reality. We got that. And we would not have got it without bargaining and negotiation by these people.
In one of the article, you also mentioned about first prime minister's visit to USA.
Huh.
For any Indian prime minister visiting USA and meeting US president
Uh,
is a big political opportunity.
yes, exactly.
Today, it is equally important, but most
Equally.
important was at that time when
Hmm.
Nehru visited. And fortunately, that was the time when Kennedy was
Hmm.
outrightly pro India.
Absolutely, yes.
But he just surrendered himself to the situation
Hmm. Hmm.
and that palpable excitement which he had for the
Hmm.
proximity he would gain to a certain
Hmm.
lady.
Yeah, right.
How that opportunity was missed by him.
How? Beg your pardon?
Uh, there was big opportunity for Indian Prime
Huh.
Minister to gain from that visit,
Right.
but has he gained anything at all
No, I
beside
do.
uh, disgusting reaction from the president of USA?
Not only
Had he gained
disgusting,
anything?
it's not just a disgusting reaction. History Chronicles say that he lost temper. In fact, he was very angry and he conveyed his anger to Secretary of State at that time, John Foster Dulles. And in fact, Kennedy offered a golden opportunity for Nehru to negotiate, gain so many things from America. Kennedy had even offered finances and technology for development of nuclear arms to counter China, and Nehru declined it. And if you read the history chronicles of observers, it says that between Nehru and Kennedy, it used to be a monologue, not dialogue. It used to be a monologue by President Kennedy. And Nehru was just a silent listener. And off and on, he used to just say nod and like that. I mean, he was hardly responding. In fact, Kennedy was ultimately so much disgusted, he made a comment after Nehru left. I think probably this is the worst meeting I had with any head of state in my career. These were words of President Kennedy. So entire opportunity was absolutely destroyed, frittered away by this fellow. Because
And
again,
a very
I would repeat my same statement again. He had no commitment to the nation. He was a person non grata, what you say. I mean, wrong man at the right position at the right time. And he entire opportunity was just wasted.
along with him, there was big list of camp followers,
Huh.
big entourage, and probably the longest ever visit
Uh-huh.
by Indian Prime Minister to USA, and
Exactly.
outcome was zero.
Yeah, of course. It is already. It's known that he had gone there after completing his state visit. He became a tourist. He
I
started
think it
moving
was
around.
more than 16 days visit, more than
Ah,
16 days
16 days.
visit
Yes,
to
from
USA.
one state to another state. And I smiled in my mind when I read that he liked Mount Rushmore very much. Probably he was visualizing himself at that particular spot. So, sorry, he had to be called back. Bureaucracy from New Delhi conveyed a message. Country is now enmeshed in severe debts. We have a lot of financial problems, and you are becoming a butt of joke, ridicule all over. So please come back. Then only he decided to come back. So I mean, what to say? I mean, a prime minister of such a huge country behaving in this manner,
Very, very
this
interesting
kind of
remark
a,
has come.
this
Uh,
kind of a behavior
Tiwari,
reminds me.
very interesting remark has come.
Uh,
And since the gentleman wishes to remain anonymous,
yeah, okay.
his comment was that
Hmm.
every year
Hmm.
today India celebrates Bal Divas
Hmm.
for what
Hmm.
all he did to children.
Hmm.
A man would be called pedophile.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I absolutely agree with that
A
gentleman.
TV program host, when tweaks the cheeks of a girl on stage,
Hmm.
is
Hmm.
removed
Hmm.
from judge's position.
Right.
For similar act, the
Hmm.
prime minister would have not been handled very kindly today. So today,
Absolutely.
people are very ruthless and ruthlessly correct.
Right. 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 Right.
Uh, I do not know. Educate me. I do not know
Hmm.
any reasons why should he be called Chacha and
Hmm.
why his birthday be celebrated as Baldevas.
Absolutely, there is no reason.
No
His
reason.
birthday should be no, no, not at all. His birthday should be celebrated as a black day in Indian history, I would say. And Bal Divas and all that, Chacha. I mean, ये दिस अ कांग्रेस ट्रेडिशन उनको चाचा बना दिया है इंदिरा गांधी को भारत की माता बना दिया है इट्स ऑल आई मीन absolutely absurdity nothing else theater of the absurd yeah.
Not
In
here,
fact
but
Nehru's
elsewhere
behavior
also.
I would say that Nehru used to behave like what Rahul Gandhi does today. Same sort of irresponsible actions, statements, absurd movement. Like Rahul Gandhi runs away to Italy. I mean, immediately after election, he will disappear. Whenever Congress party is in a bad shape or his presence is critically required, he will disappear from the scene. So I find a lot of similarity between behavior of Jawaharlal Nehru and Rahul Gandhi. In fact,
एक और कमेंट मैं कहीं पढ़ रहा था, अभी हाल फिलहाल में ही मैंने पढ़ा था कि हिंदुस्तान में हो क्या रहा है।
Hmm.
एक को फादर बना दिया, एक को मदर बना दिया, एक को
हाँ,
बहू बना
exactly.
दिया, एक को
दोनों बना
बेटी बना
दिया.
दिया, एक को चाचा
Right,
बना
right, right.
दिया। और वो
Right.
सारे रिश्ते अगर हम देखें तो वी एंड अप
Hmm.
बीइंग अ फैमिली फुल ऑफ इंसेस्ट रिलेशनशिप। तो ये हो
Absolutely,
क्या रहा है,
absolutely,
मतलब रिश्ते
absolutely.
गढ़ने का ये जो इंडिया में चलन चला है, तो
This type
इट
of
मस्ट स्टॉप समवेयर।
this
We should
type of
not address people, howsoever great they may be as leader, that they were
hmm,
father or they were uncle or they were daughter or whatever.
right.
Then widow of country would also be a title, sufficiently
Absolutely.
suitable to be attached to certain name.
This kind of absurdity can be imposed only by Congress. That's the reason. We say that BJP is a party with a difference. In fact, I have written an article. Who do you believe deserves to be father of the nation? I have proposed three names: Adi Shankaracharya, Rishi Chanakya, and Dr. Hedgewar. And at the end of the article, I have written India does not need any father of the nation at all. So we have to see from that perspective. It's an ancient, immortal nation, as old as planet Earth. You read Upanishads. I mean, one more particular aspect I want to highlight at this stage. In our country, we never had Stone Age civilization. We never had cavemen. Why? You read Upanishads. We all, Brahma ji se entire humanity came in this country. Brahma ji se jo bhi santani utpann hui, first generation, second generation, they were all Siddha yogis. And then we are descendants of those yogis. So where was Stone Age civilization in this country? Never. We never had. Stone Age civilization was only in other countries in West and all. Wherever you want, whatever you want to name. We have been a highly advanced, highly refined civilization. right since day one. I would say again, emphatically, right since day one, when according to Upanishads, when Brahmaji's first generation came into being, and we are not aware of that. Our generation, our youth, our youngsters, they are not absolutely not aware of it. And my sole purpose of writing articles is only to bring around bare facts before them. And sometimes I have to be merciless or ruthless with somebody, and I don't hesitate in the interest of this nation, in the interest of Sanatan Dharma. I don't mind being harsh even. So the point is, we need a paradigm shift in our way of thinking, in our mindset. Our mind has to be unshackled completely. You see, if you ask me what is the greatest asset in human life, I would say freedom of mind, freedom of buddhi. If your mind is free and correct ideas are there in the mind of our younger generation, they will never take wrong decision. They will never go wrong way. So what is imperative today is that they must know facts and facts correctly.
There's another observation
Huh?
which is shared through WhatsApp.
Huh?
Somehow, comments are coming through WhatsApp, not directly through the YouTube live.
I see.
And this
Right.
probably many people would like to ask the question and still remain anonymous.
Uh-huh.
Question is that in today's context, do we write off legacy of Nehru?
You see, the point is, if you appoint me, it's a sort of a joke. If you appoint me dictator of this country for just 1 minute, I'll do it. I'll do it immediately.
That has been very, very honest response.
Yeah,
If we write off Nehru's legacy, we need to rewrite history. And
absolutely. We have
history,
to need.
history for Indian independence probably would start from our first prime minister in exile, uh,
Absolutely.
Raja of
Netaji
Badawar,
Subhash Chandra. Yeah.
Shri Mahendra. Uh,
Acha, Afghanistan, sir. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Right.
so
Right.
he was the first who
You're the
formed the
first.
government in exile and
Absolutely.
from Kabul. Later
Kabul.
on,
Yes.
shifted to Singapore, and
Yes.
then
Yes.
second time,
Hmm.
government in exile was formed by Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose.
Right. Right. Right.
And
Right.
in
Right.
that list, third prime minister would come to be
Yeah,
so-called
I fully
so-called
support this
Tata.
view. I fully support this view.
So
I fully support this view.
that way, and then we have to rewrite the history in right context with facts and figures.
Huh,
Many
that's it.
documents which were not available to the historian
At that
in
time, at that time,
1947
right.
have come up
Hmm.
now,
They're
and
coming.
these documents will support us
Hmm.
to believe and
Hmm.
accurately record the history that freedom came not from charkha and
Exactly.
non-cooperation and
Bakri ka doodh and
Dandi March. It
right.
came because of revolutionaries who uh, sacrificed their life.
Right.
फांसी पे चढ़ गए, गोली खा ली, उन्होंने अपना जो आंदोलन चलाया उससे
Yeah.
डर कर, और उसके बैकग्राउंड में जो म्यूटनी शुरू हुई थी, नेवी की
Right.
म्यूटनी, probably
Navy.
these were all together culminating
Absolutely.
facts for our freedom,
Yeah.
so fast and so hurriedly handed over by
Yeah.
Britishers.
Two comments I
And
would like to add. Two
yes,
comments I would like to
thinkers
add.
like you,
Hmm.
thinkers like you would contribute immensely when you write articles and
Yeah.
research-based articles.
Right.
Recently, we had Professor Kapil also, Professor Kapil
Kapil
Kumar
Kumar. Right.
also
Hmm.
in the discussion, and
Hmm.
he has also research-based
Huh.
articles which prove.
He is very brilliant, very brilliant.
So,
I would like to
so
add, share two observations. I have ruthlessly examined all actions and decisions of Nehru, and not a single action or decision I have found pro Bharat, pro India, pro Hindu, or pro this country. This is something. It sounds drastic, but this is a fact. Now you talked about Dandi March. You see, whenever I think about Dandi March, it terribly disturbs me. Dandi March में क्या हुआ था? I mean, दुबले पतले, poor Hindus, I mean, shrunk to their bones, malnourished, undernourished, and they were brutally beaten by British Indian police. And Gandhi did not receive even a single lathi on his back. So I would accuse Gandhi, he offered our people to be brutally beaten by British forces. It was a criminal act. It was a criminal act. It is very disgusting. It was very tragic. I mean,
So
there's
finally,
absolutely no reason to be proud of Dandi March. Now, I will not be surprised after a few days if somebody like people like Professor Kapil Kumar, if he discovers Dandi March was a fraud. It was a stage managed, in fact, suggested by British Viceroy. I won't be surprised. I won't be surprised.
तो आखिर में तिवारी जी मैं हालांकि मुझे मालूम है कि आप क्या बोलेंगे, लेकिन फिर भी मैं रस्म उल्फत में पूछ लेता हूँ कि क्लोजिंग रिमार्क आपका नेहरू जी के बारे में, अगर हम कहें कि आप ये पुनरावलोकन करें नेहरू जी के बारे में, तो आप क्या कहना चाहेंगे?
In fact, I would like to repeat your comment you just now said. We should rewrite history and black out this man altogether. His tenure should be included under British domination. So that way, I mean, it was very unfortunate that he was in power for 17 years. Those were formative years. मेरे ऊपर ये आरोप कभी कभी लगता है कि यू क्रिटिसाइज नेहरू टू मच एंड माय रिस्पांस इज वेरी आई मीन सॉर्ट ऑफ डिफरेंट अनयूजुअल. आप मेरे को एक काम बता दो जो नेहरू ने सही किया हो, अच्छा किया हो इस कंट्री के लिए. If Nehru had done, in my view, if Nehru had done just one thing for the country, लड़कियों की एजुकेशन एब्सोल्युटली फ्री कर देता वो, और वो कुछ नहीं करता. मैं बोलता हूं कि वो और कुछ नहीं करता, सिर्फ लड़कियों की गर्ल्स एजुकेशन फ्रॉम क्लास 1 टू से एट द लेवल ऑफ ग्रेजुएट, ही शुड हैव मेड इट लीगली कंपल्सरी एंड एब्सोल्युटली फ्री. उसके बाद इस कंट्री की सारी प्रॉब्लम धीरे धीरे अपने आप सॉल्व होने लगती. इफ नेहरू हैड डन जस्ट वन थिंग, टुडे आई वुड हैव बीन आई वुड नॉट हैव बीन क्रिटिसाइजिंग हिम सो स्ट्रांगली. सो जो
अभी ऐसा है कि
what I'm trying to say that he had a golden opportunity to do a social engineering and he miserably failed because he had no vision at all.
It was only about 2 decades back when calling oneself as nationalist would draw a lot of sharp reactions.
Right.
जब कहते थे कि हम राष्ट्रवादी हैं, तो लोग ऐसे देखते थे कि जैसे नाजी.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
अब ये माइंडसेट बदल रहा है.
Absolutely, it is changing.
समाज में एक्सेप्टेबिलिटी बढ़ रही है, और ये आज हम कह सकते हैं कि जब हम कहते हैं कि हम राष्ट्रवादी हैं, तो ये गर्व का विषय है.
ये गर्व का विषय है.
जब हम कहते हैं कि हम भारत के लिए, अपने देश के लिए काम कर रहे हैं, और देश की अक्षुण्णता, देश की संप्रभुता, देश के फिर से समग्र भारत की पुनर्स्थापना की बात करते हैं, तो अब ये लोग सोचते हैं कि ये भी एक सम्माननीय विचारधारा है. अदरवाइज तो कांग्रेस ने तो ऐसा कर दिया था कि अपने को राष्ट्रवादी बोलना अपने को खुद को गाली देने के बराबर माना जाता था.
Patriotism was a dirty word. I mean, few years back. Just like
being nationalist was called as kind of abuse. But the narrative is changing, And this is
Narrative
the way,
change.
society changes. Their
Right.
approach to politics and their approach to ethics, their approach to principles keep changing in
Absolutely.
society and part of sociological
Yeah, yeah.
cycle. This is something which is happening for benefit
Very
of
good.
India, and
Anyway,
more
mind is
Indians like
unshackling.
you,
Mind is being unshackled. Yeah. Mental
yeah,
revolution that has
more
started.
people like you, sir, are needed. More and more people like you, when they start
Oh,
voicing their
so
opinion
nice of
and
you.
they share their ideas, uh,
Mm.
and meaningful dialogue starts happening in the society.
Absolutely.
I'm very
Right.
thankful on behalf of Patriots Forum for you to spare your time and share
Right.
your very
Sure.
candid thoughts.
Thank you so much.
May not
Thank you
be
so much.
acceptable to all of us, but then
Yeah.
this is the way things are. We need to take,
Absolutely.
even with the pinch of salt, we need to take it. And
Absolutely.
this is the
Absolutely.
necessity of the time. Uh,
Right. Right.
some other day, with some other subject, I would request Mr. Tiwari to be with us again. I
Sure.
hope
Sure. Most definitely.
you would agree to similar
Yeah. Yeah.
discussion in the future also.
Sure.
Thank you
Sure.
very
Absolutely.
much for being
Thank
with
you so
us,
much.
and thank you, viewers. We'll bring another subject next week, probably. And till then, keep sharing our links, our ideas to all your group of influence, and let's
Hmm.
start a very meaningful discussion and discourse for betterment of society. Thank you very
Hmm.
much, Mr.
Thank you so
Tiwari,
much.
once again.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
We close the discussion.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much.
Remain on.